In today's episode, I'll be talking with Kelly Smith about meditation, mindfulness, and how Christian women can use and approach these practices with confidence. We'll look at what meditation really means, how mindfulness can help us become more present in our day-to-day motherhood, and how the scriptures actually encourage us to meditate on God's word and be more present and still before Him. If you've ever wondered whether meditation can fit inside your Christian life, this episode will give you that clarity and peace. Stay tuned. I am so looking forward to this conversation today. Hey Mama, welcome to Building Yourself with Grace, the podcast for Christian moms growing in faith, mindset, and motherhood, one grace-filled step at a time. I'm your host, Jenna Azara, a faith-filled mom just like you, walking through the beautiful, holy, and messy in-betweens of motherhood. I know what it feels like to feel overwhelmed, weighed down by mom guilt, and stretched thin trying to do it all. As I go through life, I've learned this. With God's grace, we don't have to chase perfection. We can renew our minds, find strength in Christ, and grow into the women He is calling us to be. Here you'll find honest conversations, encouragement, and practical tools to help you build your life from the inside out. So grab your favorite drink, take a deep breath, and let's start building yourself with grace. Hey Mama, if you've been feeling overwhelmed, stretched thin, or just worn out from trying to hold everything together, I get it. I really do. Every week on Monday, I send a gentle, faith-filled email called the Grace Letter. It's where I share my real and raw moments, the things I'm learning, the reflections God has been placing on my heart, and even the struggles I'm working through in my own motherhood. It's not perfect, it's not polished, it's honest, and my hope is that it gives you encouragement and simple, grace-filled mindset tools you can carry into your own day-to-day motherhood life. If your heart really needs a moment of peace or a reminder that you're not alone, you can join us using the link in the show notes below. I cannot wait for you to subscribe and feel encouraged and blessed from what I have to share each week. Now let's get back to today's episode. Hello, 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 and welcome to Building Yourself with Grace. I'm your host, Jenna Azara, and today I am so excited for our conversation with Kelly Smith today. She is just one of my favorites, and I absolutely have loved her meditation podcast. In my pregnancy, I used Meditation Mama a lot. And when I was looking into talking about meditation, I'm like, okay, I got to try Kelly Smith, and I'm so happy that she is here with me today. So welcome, Kelly.
Hi, Jenna. I'm so happy to be here. And how are your little ones doing? You
Oh
have
my
one,
goodness.
two? How
Yep, I
many?
have I have one little girl and she's right now
Oh,
taking a nap. Just the
oh,
cutest little thing.
oh,
So she's just
yes.
turned two about 2 months ago, which is so wild, and she's just full of ball of energy like I was. So I'm kind of
Oh
in
my
karma right now.
gosh. What is her birth date? Because my daughter just turned two about 2 months ago.
Oh my gosh.
Right around then. They were born within a week of each other. You and I were
No
giving birth,
way.
right? Within 7 days of each other.
Oh my goodness. How many do you have?
Yes. I have two. So I have my son who on the internet I call Pork Chop, not his birth name, but just his like his internet persona. He is going to be 5 soon, which is insane. And then my daughter, who on the internet I call Poppy, she is the
Oh,
one that just turned 2 in September as well.
that's so cute. Yeah, I refer to her as baby girl or my daughter
Yeah.
on my podcast a
Mhm.
lot. And so it's so awesome. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so excited for our conversation today. And it's just fun to, you're a mom and you are in this realm a lot. And so it's gonna be amazing to have you relate, especially with the young moms. So let's go ahead and read her amazing bio. Kelly Smith is a global yoga meditation teacher, author of ERYT 500 YACEP. Did I say that right?
You did. Yep.
Yep, founder of Yoga for You and host of the iTunes chart topping podcast, Mindful in Minutes and Meditation Mama. Kelly believes that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to yoga and meditation and encourages her students to find their own personal practice, listening to their bodies and finding joy in by assessing their most authentic selves. Kelly is best known for her guided meditation, yoga nidra, and restorative yoga practices that she has been sharing since 2016 on her podcast and book. Oh my goodness. So I'm just again excited that you're here today. I just can't believe it. So I guess one of my first questions that really open up this conversation is what is meditation? And also what is the difference between meditation and mindfulness? So can you help us give an introduction for anyone who's kind of new to this field, especially as moms, and what that could look like?
Absolutely. So I like to describe meditation as if your mind is a light bulb. So when we are walking around all day doing our thing, it's like the light bulb is on, it's shining, it's, illuminating whatever we're doing, shining in many different directions. When we meditate, we're taking all of our mental power and focusing it on one thing. So we're taking our mind, our light bulb, and we're turning it into a laser, and we're going to point that laser at just one thing. We call it the point of concentration. So you're going to take your light bulb, turn it to a laser, focus your laser on your point of concentration. Now you get to decide what your point of concentration is. So that could be your breath, it could be a mantra or affirmation, it could be the words of a guide leading you through some kind of imagery and maybe a guided meditation. It could be anything else. It could be focusing on your some kind of a devotional practice. You can focus your laser on whatever you want, but it's taking your mind, the light bulb, turning it into a laser and focusing that laser on one thing. That's it. It's a very simple, it's not necessarily an easy practice because that laser likes to wander all over, but it's a very simple practice. And so the difference between meditation and mindfulness is that when you're practicing mindfulness, it's taking that same light bulb, but turning the light up all the way and letting it illuminate one thing that you're doing at a time. So you can't really meditate and do something at the same time. The only exception is sort of a walking meditation, which is a little bit of a hybrid practice. But for example, you can't meditate and drive your car at the same time, or meditate and work out at the same time. However, you can drive your car mindfully. You can be fully present, letting that light only illuminate the task of driving your car. Or you can, be mindful when you're working out, letting that light just illuminate the act of working out, or folding your laundry, because I know it's all moms listening, so I don't know how, and Jenna, I'm sure you can relate to this, I don't know how every time you add one member to your family, it somehow like 10x's your laundry. But we're chronically behind laundry. It's like the math doesn't add up. But now that I have two kids, I can confirm each additional person in that household 10x's the laundry. So I'm always behind on laundry. So you could be fully present just with the act of folding, of feeling the fabric, being intentional with folding. You don't have to necessarily do it slowly, but even feeling it. You can smell the clean laundry. You can be folding your kids' clothes and just think about like, oh, last time we wore that, we went to the park, and that was just such a sweet moment to push my baby in the swing or whatever it is. And so to be mindful or practice mindfulness is just be really present in just one thing at a time.
I love that. I like that's a really great way to look at it is that meditation is helping you kind of being focused on present and you can't multitask when you're meditating. Versus mindfulness, you can be mindfully doing something and being present while doing something. If that is that correct? Like how I
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm not a big multitasking fan in general. It's not like super great for our brains. I know that's easier said than done, especially for a mom. I mean, just for some context, I'm definitely the primary parent in our households. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and, also podcast and work and things like that. And so I get it. We all have a bajillion things going on. We have all of those tabs open, right? The mental load, I think about it as like my web browser, that even right now, as I'm simultaneously trying to work and also plan my son's birthday party. And we just randomly had a pipe issue. So we don't have floors in our kitchen. So trying to, pick out a new dish, all of these random things that we find ourselves doing as moms, it's all of these open tabs. But multitasking isn't very great for our brains, and it actually can, in many cases, like reduce our productivity. So that's just my 2 cents on that. But practicing mindfulness definitely is the act of just intentionally doing one thing at a time, being present with one thing at a time. Like we can be with our kids. It doesn't have to be for very long. We can sit and be with our kids, even though we have a million things to do. Often I'm, at home by myself with the kids. Mine wake up early. So anywhere from, 4 a.m. in the morning. And sometimes my husband comes home after bedtime because he works some pretty long shifts. And so I can be with my kids straight for, I don't know what that 15, 16 hours. And I don't have to be there necessarily playing with them all the time. Other things need to happen. I need to make lunch. I'm, getting the preschool backpack ready for my older, and I'm doing all these things at the same time. But I can take these moments to when my daughter wants to play with little Tykes farm right now is like the hot toy for her. And I can sit there for even 5-10 minutes, put my phone down, stop what I'm doing when I have the time. Maybe my son is busy looking at a book or something, and just be there and be the little farm animals with her. Even that is practicing mindfulness, just being fully present and allowing all of my senses to be right there in that moment with just one thing.
I love that. And this is a question actually I want to ask for myself, but I'm sure a lot of moms feel like this because I know you said that you're not a big fan of multitaskers. I know a lot of us moms are sometimes tend to be probably unhealthy multitaskers, and I think I'm definitely one of them, and I recognize it, and I strive to not be like that. So, what are some advice for someone who has what we call monkey brain, or just it's hard for them to be like for me, for example, I'm trying to be more mindful and more present with my daughter when I play with her, but my mind's always thinking of everything I want to do, and I find myself working on my home or my business instead and realizing, whoa, what just happened? I thought I was just playing with my daughter. And all of a sudden I got caught up in stuff. So, what are some advice to help with monkey brain or constant distraction in your to-do list in your mind to be more mindful?
I love this question, and I struggle with it too. And my job is to be a meditation and yoga teacher, and it's still something that I struggle with. Those to-do lists are never ending. Again, like that mental load, the constant open tabs that you have in your brain, like it's never ending. And so my first piece of advice is to have realistic expectations for yourself. And so it's not like we're magically going to find a way to be zen and to never multitask and to never, I'm definitely, there's times last night I was, on the phone with the place where I'm having my son's birthday party while I was cooking dinner. And of course, my daughter's too. So she's in this like snacks phase. So she was like, fainting to the floor like an anemic Victorian lady because I didn't give her, her 19th snack of the day or whatever. And so I'm trying to, open this yogurt drink for her while I'm cooking dinner, while I'm on the phone with this, birthday place. And I'm trying to, tell my kid about something. It's going to happen. So I think giving yourself a little bit of patience, of grace, of kindness, and having realistic expectations is honestly some of the best advice that I can give you because it's going to happen. There will never be, as long as you have children, as long as we exist as humans in this world, you're going to have those moments, probably a lot. So then moving on to my second piece of advice is that having like these intentional breaks to practice mindfulness in particular. And so, noticing in yourself, okay, you're doing all of these things, right? You're doing a million things, and that's going to happen at times. There's also times where sometimes I just feel myself being a little bit tired. And so if both of my kids are playing at the same time, I might just be scrolling on my phone. Again, you can always count on me to be, really real about this stuff, but it happens. It's like, I'm tired. I might just be scrolling on my phone. And that's where then I can hit that pause button and be like, you know what? This is a great opportunity to just be intentional and have some intentional time with my kids right now, even though they're all kind of, no one needs anything at the moment. For now, that could last 30 seconds. Why don't I get up off the couch and sit there, even if it's just sitting and being in their presence for a little bit, things like that. Or if I'm, doing a task, if I'm going to go for a walk, if I get out of the house and I'm going to go for a walk, and I just say, you know what, maybe I don't want to listen to a podcast this time when I'm walking, or maybe I don't, want to do something else while I'm walking. I just want to go and have a 15-minute walk and just enjoy the sensation of walking. Finding these little pockets to practice it, especially when you find yourself really wanting to do all the things at the same time. Of course, you're going to multitask at times, absolutely. But then you'll start to see these little places where you can be a little bit more intentional. Another place I like to practice mindfulness at times when I'm sitting in the pickup line from preschool. Those pickup lines are pretty long. And so sometimes I'm just sitting there for a while waiting for, the gates to open so I can go pick up my kiddo. And that's where I could practice just doing one thing if I wanted to. You'll find these little pockets in your day where you can practice it. And then my third piece of advice is I know that it feels like we have so many things going on in our lives as moms, and we do. It feels that way because it's accurate. That is what's happening. But practicing meditation, studies tell us even 8 minutes a day is enough to get these benefits. What happens if you think again about that light bulb? We're turning it to a laser pointer. So we're taking that laser and we're pointing it at one thing. Let's say it's our breath, following the breath as it moves in and out of the body. When you do that, I would say, from my experience, what would be pretty average for someone, especially starting a meditation practice, is that you can point that laser at your breath, for example, for maybe 3 to 8 seconds at a time before it's going to deviate to something else. It's going to say, oh shoot, I went to the grocery store and I forgot bananas and I want that for bananas. Or it's going to go, oh, I need to, confirm when my in-laws are coming in for Thanksgiving, or, oh, I need, whatever. It's going to deviate to all these things. And so what you're doing is you're pointing your laser at that one thing at your breath, for this example, and then it's going to deviate and then you bring it back and then it's going to deviate. You're going to bring it back. You might get distracted in your 5 to 8 minutes 100 times. And that's okay. That is okay. That's what we're supposed to do. Meditation is like resistance training or weight training. And what it does for our muscles, meditation is that for the brain. And so, what we're trying to do over time is increase the length in between distractions. And so, maybe instead of every 3 to 8 seconds, maybe now it's every 10 to 15 seconds. And then over time, maybe you're with it for like 20 seconds, which honestly is a challenging task. I think they did studies in our recent, like our attention span on average as humans is like 3.8 seconds, which is less than a goldfish. And so, not to depress anyone, but I think a goldfish has like a 4.5 second attention span, and ours is less than that. So, it's going to be challenging to sit there with one thing at a time. We're so used to all this different stuff all the time, and just be with something, our breath, for 20 whole seconds is incredible. And so what happens is then it not only trains us to then be with one thing at a time for longer than just a few seconds, it also starts to change your brain. So this really interesting thing happens where your amygdala, which is the fear, pain, worry, anxiety center of the brain, it's the part of the brain that kicks off the fight or flight mechanism, that actually begins to shrink over time. For many people, it is kind of enlarged and overactive. It's because we're often in a state of fight or flight kind of chronically, especially as a mom. And then what happens is the activity shifts to the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain right behind the forehead, has to do with like emotion regulation, has to do with some of this higher cognitive function, memory, planning, all of these things. That actually begins to increase in density. It gets more of those folds. You can get more neurological activity happening there. So then over time, usually after about 8 weeks of daily meditation, so think 8 minutes meditation for 8 weeks, you're going to actually retrain your brain to not only have smaller physiological responses to things like stress and anxiety and fear, which I can't speak for anyone else, but I had tremendous postpartum anxiety after the birth of my son. And so it will help to reduce anxiety, and then it'll give you a greater capacity to focus on things, to regulate your emotions, and to access some of that kind of more executive functioning tasks that we really need. And so you're training your brain over time to be able to kind of reduce that monkey brain.
I really love that those are honestly really good three different ways and steps to help us because it's true. It's accurate. Like we're constantly multitasking as a mom, especially with young toddlers like that. Oh my gosh, mine is the drama queen too of if she doesn't get her snack or that one toy, she'll flop to the floor and I'm like, "Oh, you like your mom, you're just full of drama."
We call it melting in our house. She just like,
Melting.
we go, oh, you're
Oh.
melting. She just melts to the ground.
I like that. I might just use that for now on. You're melting. And so I think it's so easy as moms, we go into this mom shame or this mom guilt of like, oh, I wasn't, laser focused on that breath for that long or in this being mindful in this. So what are some kind of like good statements or thoughts that we can retrain our brain to so whenever we get in those like, oh, I did like I'm shaming myself kind of moment of not doing that. What are some more positive messages we can tell ourselves, which I truly believe will help us become more mindful if we reshape our brain? And so, what are some mindful thoughts that we can say to change that mindset?
Yeah. So I think a reframe around that is so important because, well, the first thing I'll say is something happened, at least for me, when I was pretty newly postpartum with my son. And there's something that I wrote about in the self love section of one of my books that I wrote. It's called Meditation for the Modern Family. But in the self love chapter, I talked about this instance where I kind of had this like light bulb moment. And basically, I was holding my son. We were doing a lap nap. He was just a lap, I was nap trapped from like November of 2020 until like, I don't know, like February of like 2022, it feels like. But he just was a contact napper. And so I was there and I just was kind of sitting there. I was, lap trapped. And of course, it's sweet at times, but then also when you're there for forever, you're like, okay, I have to pee. And then, I have to do this. And like your mind really does start to wander places because you're just sitting there kind of holding your baby. Maybe you have your phone, maybe you have a book. I don't know. But I was sitting there and I really got stuck in this cycle or thinking about how unhappy I was with my postpartum body at the time, especially after my first. That is such a change in your body to go through pregnancy and birth and then to be newly postpartum. Everything was just so different to me. I had a very different experience the second time around. So anyone who has one child and is expecting their second, at least for me, I had a much better and like positive postpartum experience the second time around because I at least knew what to expect. However, in this moment, I was just hit with this juxtaposition of me thinking such unkind things about myself, about everything, not just my body, about everything, and how, I'm not really working right now. And what I love what I do so much. It's so important to me. I'm not working on my podcast, this whole like, who am I now that I'm a mom? And I was thinking these unkind thoughts about my body and all this stuff. Yet I was holding my son and I was looking at him and I just was filled with like this deep love, right? Looking at his little precious little angel baby face, just there sleeping and just thinking, oh my gosh. And it hit me. In the book, I say it hit me like a breast pump to the face, which is what it felt like. It just hit me like kaboom. But it just hit me. He, at least 50% is me. He is made from me. And how can I love him so unconditionally with so much care? It's not like I look at him and think, oh my gosh, I just love you so much, but only the parts that came from your father. That's not what I think to be honest, sometimes I think, oh, you got that from your dad. And I don't, don't know if I appreciate that, but I'm holding him and I have such love for him, such care for him. And, and he is 50% me. And how can I have such unkind things to say to myself, but such unconditional love for him? And so a big reframe that happened for me in that moment is that to speak to myself in that way is almost in a way to speak to my son in that way, and vice versa. To love him so unconditionally is also to love myself so unconditionally. Both of my children, got half of who they are from me. And it was such a reframe for me to think about it in that way that it is nearly impossible to think about how you can have such, in that moment, it really kind of felt like self-loathing. It was just one of those really tough postpartum days. We all have them. It was just one of those days where you're just like, it was just a dark day. And I had such intense love for him at the same time. And it really just reframed the way that I thought about self-love, love, but also the way that I speak to myself. And is that a way I would ever speak to my children? No. Even something as simple, like you say, we can be so hard on ourselves about not meditating or not being intentional or not being mindful. If your child came up to you, even if, let's say you imagine your child's a young adult, right? They come up to you, they're whatever, 25 years old, and they come up to you and they're like, oh, mom, I had such a tough day today. I did this and I did that. And I was caring for these things. Maybe they have kids of their own and you're, in this hypothetical situation. And I was, and the baby was doing this and all of these things. And then I was trying to work and then I had to go to the, showroom to pick out new floors for the kitchen and all of this. And I just am the absolute worst because I did not meditate today and I didn't do this. And, you start spiraling all to this. How would you respond to your child in that moment when you're thinking about that hypothetical? Would you be like, yeah, you're right. You suck. That is horrible. Like, go and meditate. You're an awful person. No. How would you respond to them? You'd probably be like, oh my gosh, like, honey, You just listed off 57 other things that you did. You're doing so much. You're incredible. You're balancing this, you're balancing that. You're pouring into yourself, you're pouring into your family. You're doing all of these things. Give yourself a break. Like, give yourself a break. If you want to meditate, maybe go, when we're done talking, why don't you just go listen to a, 5-minute guided meditation before you go to bed? Get some sleep. Go take care of yourself. And so when I think about this reframe of how we talk to ourselves versus how we talk to our kids, but our kids are made from us. At least for me, I don't know if this resonates with anyone else, completely changed like my life in that moment when it just like hit me. So that's like a big thing for me in terms of like when we think about mom guilt and when we think about, and I still get plagued with it too, absolutely. Um, but that's a big piece for me is kind of this reframe of how we're talking to ourselves versus how we talk to our kids, how we love ourselves versus how we love our kids. And another big piece is what are we modeling for our children in terms of, especially as women, for both my son and my daughter, I have one of each, right? So, how am I modeling for her how to speak to myself as a woman? But also, how am I modeling for my son what like women should be like? Or, I just think about what am I modeling for them? And is that what I want to model for them? And a lot of times when I'm in that cycle of guilt, of shame, of struggle, I'm not modeling what I want to model for them. And that helps me to kind of snap out of it.
I love that, just to think about how would I talk to my child, young or older, if they were coming to me about something, and I think we think about this too. If we had a friend come over and tell us all these things too, we would comfort them, we would reassure them, and we would encourage them. And I'm like, why are we so hard on ourselves? It seems like we're like our worst judges, our worst critics, and it's so important to love ourselves unconditionally and just recognize that we are just doing our darn best and that some days is just better than others and that's okay. Sometimes it's just accepting what's going on and releasing that shame or releasing those expectations on yourself and giving yourself that grace. And I think kind of transitioning to how we can um, meditate as Christians, but I think same thing with God, like how God looks at us. Does because we believe that we are His children, and so if we believe that God loves us as a son or daughter, especially since we're talking moms here, daughters, do you think that He's going to criticize you every little thing, every time you yell at your child or every time you snap at your husband? No, He's going to encourage you and help you. Like, yeah, He may be like, yeah, maybe that wasn't the best thing to do, but let's work on that. Let's fix that. And that's something you can talk about with yourself. So, as sometimes with meditation, it sometimes becomes a taboo topic in Christianity. And I actually kind of was shocked. I've always loved meditation. It's been a big, huge part of my life, and it's been a huge blessing in my life. And so I think, would be so important to address some concerns that maybe some Christian moms may have about meditation. So, in your experience, maybe helping moms who are Christian, what are some things that have helped you with them, with those taboos?
Yeah. And I really appreciate you, Jenna, for letting me talk about this because it's something that I feel, I wouldn't say necessarily feel passionately about, but I would say it's something that comes up a lot. Um, Years ago in my former life, I moved to a one bar, one Walmart town in Missouri for my husband's career. And we were there for a few years, and I ended up opening up a yoga studio there. And that would have been in like 2014, over 10 years ago. And it was, there were a lot of Christians in that area. I would say it was a little bit more of a conservative area. And that was when I first was introduced to this idea. I didn't know at the time. I was, 24 years old. I was in this new place. I was living in Minneapolis, which is where I live now. But it's when I lived there the first time. And I had never heard that meditation was against some people's beliefs or faith or religion. And it was new to me. And I had this instance in which I was teaching at the local library, and I was teaching this like kids yoga class. And it was just like a community class. I would do it. I would just donate my time and do it. And I brought a book that time, and it was called Peaceful Piggy Meditation. I do still like this book if anyone is looking for book recommendations, like kids' books on meditation. It's called Peaceful Piggy Meditation. So I brought this book with me, and the format of this class is we would always, we'd kind of maybe do a little bit of breath, and we would do, some movement for our body. We'd usually read a little book and then kind of end with some kind of little activity. So I pull out Peaceful Piggy Meditation, and most of the kids there, they were young kids because they were not, it was during the school year. So they were all like under 6, I would say. So the parents were always there too. And I got into some trouble for pulling out the book Peaceful Piggy Meditation. And I guess that a lot of the parents had complained to the librarian that they felt like that book was inappropriate. And like I said, I had never heard this before. And I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean? What's wrong with it? I don't understand. And the librarian had to explain to me that for some Christians, not all, it just kind of depends on, what your personal faith is. And I think faith is a really beautiful thing. I'm certainly not here to say that faith isn't an incredible, beautiful thing, but I also know it's a really personal, individualized thing. So I don't want to make any assumptions about, everyone's faith. But I know for some, they have been brought up to believe that the word meditation or the practice of meditation is against their faith because it comes from traditionally like a Hindu tradition. And this is what the librarian had explained to me. And so Peaceful Piggy Meditation, they were upset by the word meditation. So I had a little bit of a conversation with the librarian and the parents, and we did find a way because I wanted to pinpoint like what's the actual issue here. And the issue here for them was the word meditation. They didn't want that word being used around their kids. So as long as we came to an agreement, as long as I didn't use the word meditation, we could call it, looking inward, checking in with our feelings, intentional breathing. I could use any of these, terms other than I just couldn't use the word meditation or bring books that had meditation in it. So what I like to say for anyone, and I have no ill will, nothing towards those parents at all. Also, as a parent myself, I understand we're all just doing the best we can with what we have, and we want to protect our children with what we feel like is best for them. And that's our job as parents. So I have no ill will or anything towards those parents at all, but it really opened my eyes. And so I then went into a bit of research into this. And so for anyone who is thinking about this or has heard this before, that meditation is against your faith or your religion, what I want to say is that the act of meditation itself is not a religious practice. So if you do research and it says that meditation is a Hindu practice, so what they're saying is that basically this concept of meditation, that it's Hindu or it's Buddhist or a non-Christian faith, basically they're looking at the fact that these faiths are older than Christianity. And so a lot of times when we look at the very first mention of some of these terms, they do come from non-Christian texts. And so the first thing that I want to say is that if you in your soul feel like to you meditation is not right for you, you do not have to meditate. And I want to give everyone the permission to do what feels good and in alignment to them. And if you're listening to me talking and you're saying, ooh, I just don't feel right with that, it doesn't feel good to me, then do not worry about it. The meditation doesn't have to be a part of your life, and it is so okay. It is absolutely okay. And so that's the first thing that I want to say. If you're unsure, the conclusion that I've come to through my research and what I firmly believe is that when it comes to meditation, again, we think about this light bulb, right? We're taking our light bulb, we're going to turn it into a laser, we're going to point our laser to something. You are completely in control of what you point that laser to. The concept of single pointed concentration is not a religious concept. It shows up in pretty much every religion, including Christianity, this idea of being present, of being mindful, of focusing on one thing. For me, and I was raised Catholic, I went to a Catholic school when I was young. But for me, the idea of prayer is just single pointed concentration on the conversation that I'm having with God or the prayers that I'm sending up to God. And that is something that it's just, that's what I'm pointing my laser at. And I think it comes down to intention. And I think it comes down to what you want to point your laser at. And that in and of itself, focusing on one thing at a time, that's not a religious practice. If you were to sit and just, focus on folding your laundry or practicing general mindfulness, is that a religious practice? No, it's just being present with one thing. And so if you feel more comfortable calling it something else, you absolutely can. But meditation is just the point of the act of single pointed concentration. And you get to choose what you point that at. It could become a part of your devotional practice. It also never has to be religious. And at all. You could just listen to your breath. Jenna has all these great mantras you can listen to that you can focus on. You could also do like a body scan, for example. That's not a religious practice. That's just focusing on one part of your body piece by piece to try to let go of some of that physical tension in the body. And so to me, it really boils down to intention and what you're pointing your laser at. Now, if you wanted to point your laser at something that is religious or a part of your faith, go for it. You can do that. But then also people who aren't religious, they can choose not to do that too. And so that's where I really kind of settled on the, meditation is against my religion, is that the big piece is if you genuinely feel uncomfortable with it, you do not need to do it. That is totally fine. You absolutely do not need to do it. And then after that, it's if you want to give it a try or if you want to talk to your pastor about it more, you absolutely could do that. You could, I always encourage people to do your own research. For me personally, I feel it boils down to intention and what you point your laser to. And to circle back to those lovely parents and just the community that I served when I had my yoga studio, there were definitely some people that, would come to my studio or wouldn't come to my studio because they felt like it didn't align, or they'd come to my studio and ask some questions. And I think that too, depending on who your teacher is, how they teach and things like that, you can also find a teacher that feels in alignment with what you believe and makes you feel comfortable.
I absolutely love that. It's a really a great way to sum it up. And also, I kind of want to give my thoughts on it too, because this is something I was kind of studying about, and it honestly was really new to me that not all, but some Christians, found meditation not part of their faith. And so I wanted to do, and again, like she said, like if you don't feel like that's part of your faith, you do not have to do it, but it is like something that can help you. And I wanted to give a little bit my thoughts, kind of like meditation. It's honestly like a morally neutral term. It's the same thing with music, writing, breathing, fasting, journaling. Like you can always, and anything you use in life, it can be marriage, whatever it is, anything can be veered to one direction or the other depending on your focus, like Kelly talked about. I did some scriptural study as well on this, and it's actually very, very fascinating how many times meditate or the word meditation was used in at least in the King James Bible. For example, in Joshua chapter 1, verse 8, the Lord commanded Joshua to meditate on his law day and night, which in other words, take time to be laser focused on my word, to ponder, to reflect on my word. And also Psalms 119 verse 15, I meditate on your precepts. And then Psalms 104, verse 34, my meditation of him shall be sweet. And we think about also in Psalms, I'm trying to remember, was it 46:10? I had the scripture, but be still and know that I'm God. Meditating is really kind of aligning ourselves, our thoughts, like, because in this world, it gets so easy to be consumed with everything around us. And when we meditate, it helps us become laser focused on whatever we're focusing on. And you can meditate on the Lord, you can meditate on the scripture, or you can even meditate on figuring out your identity of yourself or yourself as a daughter of God. It really is just how you use the word meditation or the practice of meditation. And for me personally, talking, it has truly have blessed my life. I am far from perfect from it. I have the monkiest brain out there in the world, it feels like. But at the same time, it has helped me find peace and find stillness that I would not be able to any other way. Mindfulness can help with that, but truly meditation really can help me focus my mind to the Lord. Anytime I do a scripture study, it is meditating in a way. When you're studying the Word of God, you're meditating on His Word. And one more scripture I wanted to share that I've been sharing throughout my podcast a lot. Oh dear, did I forget my Bible over here? Wow, that is so funny of me. I forgot my Bible, but still, in Romans chapter 12, verse 1, it says renewing of the mind. And I'm totally gonna butcher the last part, but in a sense, like to not be of the world, renewing, like he's asking us to renew our mind unto him that we may not be part of the world. And meditation can help with that. It helps you focus on that. And so I'm not trying to make this a preachy moment, but I just think I'm very passionate about meditation because personally, as a Christian, it has personally helped me find who I am, find my calm, and find myself back to God. And it's a practice that I just think everyone would benefit from. And again, you don't have to turn to it. I think just being still and using the affirmations that I post every Thursday is a great way to meditate and to be still and be focusing on your breath. And it also can help you as a mom who's struggling with your kids and or your husband. They may say something that irritates you or do something that irritates you or lose your patience. Meditation can also help bring you back to, okay, I don't need to react right now. I can think clearly and I can take a deep breath. And mindfulness can probably be big part of that, but meditation has helped me with that. So, any thoughts you want to add on that, Kelly?
I am just so grateful for you sharing all of that and your perspective. I'm certainly not a scripture expert, so I love that you came with that and shared that. And I think that what you said at the end, at least for me, really rings true. Is that I think meditation really helps me to become a better mom, become a better wife, also become a better, daughter, and it helps me to get to know myself better, which is something, again, when I think about what I'm modeling for my children, I want them to be connected to who they really are on the inside, and to be their most beautiful, authentic selves. And meditation helps me to do that because it's that intentional introspection. But I think, even in the sense of being a mom is hard, being a wife is hard. Maybe, maybe not everyone, but I've been married for quite a while. And yeah, my husband knows how to, say just the right thing to irritate me at times, and my kids, it's like they know when you're right on the edge and you're like peeking over the edge and you're like, I'm just about to absolutely lose my mind. And they know exactly what to do to just give you that little nudge off the edge. It's just such a talent they have. And again, maybe not your kids, maybe mine are just particularly beautiful and gifted in that. They are like truly like exemplary in that. However, meditation helps me so much with like my reactivity, with being able to pause before I respond, with just not blowing my top. It's like, that Instapot where you have a little thing and it, goes, you can open up the valve and it lets go of some of the pressure. For me, like meditation is really that. And so it helps me to show up as the person that I want to be, which has been really beneficial to me in my life.
I love that. Thank you so much, Kelly. One more question I had, and I realized I wanted to ask you this more in the beginning, but honestly, I think can just tie in together. We're surrounded by noise constantly, whether noise from the TV screen our kids are watching constantly, or noise of just social media, or the noise of just whatever we surround ourselves with. It can be big, loud noise, or it can be even just whatever noise we hear or read or think about. Our mind can have a lot of noise. And so I had a friend ask me because had a little survey on my Instagram, and this friend asked me this like, so how can we find time to meditate or be still when there's so much noise around us? And I think that I can also align with like, how can I be still with God if there's just so much noise around me? So I was hoping there'd be some ideas that you can share with us to help us as moms, whether of faith or not of faith, to help us be aligned with ourselves with God.
What a beautiful question. And logistically speaking, so the first thing I want to say is if anyone ever has the opportunity to go on a silent retreat, whether that be, I've done it before. I lived with monks for a little bit for a few weeks and I had to take a vow of silence when I was there. You certainly do not have to do that, especially after our whole conversation as apprehensive to bring that one up when we're just talking about meditation and religion. I'm like, oh, don't mind me. I'm just off living with the monks. But it was a really interesting experience. And I did have to take a vow of silence. I was there to learn one really particular, a very niche style of meditation that they did. And they were so generous in their teaching with me. But if anyone has the opportunity, now granted, that was before I had kids, right? We can't all just, maybe we want to, but we can't all just, go away and, do a 2 to 3 week, meditation silent retreat. However, even if you have the opportunity, I do know that some churches, in particular, will do silent retreats at times. And if that is something that ever comes up for you, I know it seems scary, but when your friend asked about noise, it really made me think about this. Take that opportunity because you will never be. It's very hard. It is very uncomfortable. And you will never become more aware of not only the noise that is around you, but how you create noise just because we're so uncomfortable in silence. We are so uncomfortable with just being in a room of people and just sitting and no one saying anything. Everyone starts to get uncomfortable and someone will just be like, so nice weather we're having. And you will never be so aware of your own discomfort with silence, which is why one of the reasons why we live in such a loud world. We are constantly trying to also fill ourselves up with this noise because we're very uncomfortable with silence. So if you ever get the opportunity to take a silent retreat, even if it's half day, a full day, I do know that there are quite a few churches that will do this, and they're, anyways, they seem incredible. There's also, you can just go on silent retreats, meditation retreats, whatever it is. But if you ever have the opportunity to have extended periods of silence like that, please take advantage of that. It will be life-changing for you. It'll be so challenging and uncomfortable, and it will be life-changing for you, I promise. The reason that I bring that up first is because the first thing, especially with your friends, question about noise, and I'm happy to answer any of these questions, Jenna. I just love hanging out and chatting about this. But so if your friend has other questions, just let me know. But the first thing is to look around and ask yourself, what noise can I get rid of? I know that's not an answer to the question yet. However, I think it's really important to look at that because, of course, there's noise we can't control, right? Again, I live with a 2 and 4-year-old and a man in my house and a dog. Okay. Between the animal and the grown adult man and the 2 children, there's just a lot of noise in my house. And so a lot of that, not controllable. That is out of my control. However, some of the other noises and sounds that I have, I do have control over, whether that be, am I trying to listen to a podcast in one ear while I'm cooking dinner, while I'm talking to my kids and all these things and just overstimulating myself with sound? Can I remove some of that? Even some of the noise, I think of noise as sometimes the pressure we put on ourselves, that mental chatter of, the other day, my husband came home and he was like, oh, River's already riding a bike. Do you think we should be teaching Pork Chop how to ride a bike? And just kind of these things where it's just like, we compare ourselves. And so we create noise with that mental chatter, that constant to-do list. Is there something you can do? Can you actually write the to-do list down on a piece of paper so it can get out of your brain? So first doing a little audit, because believe me, it is loud. It is loud. Just existence is loud. Is there any noise that you can intentionally reduce for yourself? That would be my first thing. The other thing is kind of more of a logistical answer, which is I find personally, especially as a mom, there's 3 ideal times for you to meditate in the day. It's going to be immediately when you wake up, if you wake up before your kids, during nap time, if your kids still nap or take quiet time, and the last 5 minutes before you go to bed. The reason logistically, I think these are your 3 best bets for getting a meditation in during the day is because everything else in between, like those 3 events for you, regardless of, and the midday one, right? If your kids go to school and you maybe don't work outside of the home and you have time at home, can you, fit that in during the school day? But basically kind of immediately when you wake up, if you wake up first, my kids wake up well before the sun. So they usually wake me up. So I don't do that. Nap time or rest time, or 5 minutes before you go to bed, because those are probably like the 3 events, at least in my life and in many moms' lives, that are destined to happen that day. If I'm lucky, I'm going to wake up. If I'm lucky, the kids are going to take their nap, even if it's just they're having their quiet time in their room. They don't always nap. And if I'm lucky, I made it through another day and I'm going to bed at night. Anything else is a complete, absolute, who knows what's happening in between those 3 things. I don't know. But whatever's going to happen, who knows? So it's going to be really challenging to fit a meditation. If you say, I'm going to meditate at some point today, it's probably not going to happen. There's just too much going on for you. And so those 3 times in the day, just think about, reflect in your own. And one thing I'll say, if you're not a morning person and the idea of waking up 5 minutes early to meditate makes you want to poke your eyeball out, don't do it. That's not sustainable. And don't give yourself a hard time for magically not being a morning person. Okay, you know what? I am a morning person and I can't stay up past like 9 p.m. or I'm like really not a very nice person. I get too tired. And so just be honest with yourself. Which one sounds the most pleasant? Which one sounds the most realistic? And then you just have to commit to giving it a try. Even if you try, you say, okay, I think, like for me, usually before bed or nap time, those are my 2, because my kids usually wake me up, so I can't meditate then. Those are kind of my 2 options. If I'm not working over nap time, I like to do my meditation then, a lot of times right before bed. Helps to quiet my mind, relax my body, really improves my sleep. So then commit yourself for like And also, those are 3 times where it's usually quiet to go back to the noise thing before everyone else is woken up, when everyone's in their rooms. And basically, you just need everyone else in a room asleep. That's how you're going to have a quiet meditation as a mom. You need everyone else in a room and contained and quiet. But those are your 3 best bets for a time. And again, we only need 5 to 10 minutes max. Listen to a guided meditation. Have some of your favorites that you can just go to so you don't even have to think about it. Once you find something that you like, of course, I would love people to come meditate with me on Mindful Minutes or Meditation Mama. It does not have to be me. You can join Insight Timer for free. You can find meditations on YouTube. There's people out there who are creating Christian meditations, but just save some of your favorites that you can go to time and time again. So you don't have to think about it. You can just sit down and do your few minutes and then go to bed or start your day or go make your lunch, whatever it is. But like logistically speaking, that's my best tip.
No, I absolutely agree with you. Like, and also just depends on the season. Like for me, I like to try to wake up earlier than my daughter, but especially with daylight savings recently, she likes to challenge every time. I swear, it's like they sense it. She senses
They do.
anytime I like put an alarm for 5 in the morning. All of a sudden, she's waking 5 in the morning. Why? I don't know why. But sometimes you just have to like be, kind and flexible with your season too. Like as a mom, sometimes your schedule changes just as fast as you make it. And so
Mhm.
just work with what's best for you. Also, something I wanted to add on ideas to help is also doing a social media fast is a great way to quiet the noise. Because sometimes when you're on social media, and again, social media is not a bad thing, it's like anything, it's a great tool, but if you don't use it for, like, if you use it to numb yourself or to be learning, go into an indulgence or an addiction, that's where it becomes bad. And sometimes social media can become a place where it tells you how to think, what to do, and all these things. So, and also all the shame and guilt of what you're not doing. And that's enough noise that you don't need in your life sometimes. And for me personally, a social media fast has helps me quiet my mind more than it's like it's amazing. So that's something, or at least lessen it. Like I tried to lessen my social media use within 30 minutes of the day. That's it. I'm no longer on social media if I'm 30 minutes or more. But that's me personally. Everyone does it differently, but at least for me, I think social media or just even phone use, it can be a way to quiet down. Like if you not use it as often, can quiet down a lot of that noise. And so I just wanted to add that because that is personally what helped me. And it is really cool when you're more mindful of the noise around you. Like I didn't realize how much I like to have music because I also find myself it's awkward to have quiet in the house. And so I've been challenging myself to not always turn on music, even if it's just a nice fall instrumental guitar, or just challenging myself just to have 10 minutes of quiet time and taking a nap with no music, or something like that. So those are some other things that have helped me find that quiet, but I love those suggestions and I totally encourage anyone to practice them. Um, so anyone that wants to reach out to you or even ask you more questions on meditation and want to explore more of how Christianity and meditation can fit together in your faith, how can they reach out to you?
So I am a millennial mother, which means you can find me on Instagram. And that's probably the best place to find me. My handle is Yoga for You Online. You can just send me a message. I will get back to you. I do the classic mom thing where you'll hear back from me in like either within 5 minutes or within 5 business days, and it'll be nothing in between. It'll be one or the other, depending on what's happening in life. But I love to chat about these things. And that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. And then if anyone wants to try meditation, I would love to invite you to come over and check out Mindful in Minutes or Meditation Mama, which is a guided meditation podcast for the fertility, prenatal, and postpartum phase of your life. And yeah, they're all free. They're all free. They're short. You can just hit play on one. We can meditate together. There's a lot of options over there, but that's probably the best way.
Awesome. Again, I'm just a big fan of Meditation Mama. That was my saving grace throughout my
Mhm.
pregnancy. I had a really hard pregnancy. And so definitely check it out if you're going through hard pregnancy or just pregnancy in general and postpartum. She has a lot of great ones. Also, a great one about one of my favorite meditations from Meditation in Minutes. She actually has them both podcasts of how to lower, like how to handle anger and like how to, because there's times I'm like so angry. And then I turn to her meditation. And I'm like, okay. I can do this, So
Oh, I
thank
love
you for
hearing
those
that.
meditations. Like, honestly, it's been my saving grace, especially the one with anger. I'm always like, okay, Jake, take the kid. I'm gonna go take a meditation for a second. I'm so angry I can't take this right now. So So thank you for those amazing meditations, and thank you for everyone tuning in today. I hope you've been feeling enlightened, and it's okay if you still disagree with us. I think that's totally valid, honestly. Like, that's why I think it's just so amazing that you're welcome to agree or disagree. But I hope at least this episode has been very educational and help you open your mind to how meditation is actually, I think, from God, and can help us become not only one with ourselves, but also one with Him. So thank you again, Kelly, for being here today. It's been such a joy to have you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Jenna. This has been the highlight of my day.
Thank you. I hope today's episode brought a lot of clarity and understanding of what meditation is and how we can practice mindfulness in our day-to-day life, and also how meditation and mindfulness is a godly practice and a tool that He gives us to help us not only be present with ourselves, but to be present with Him. Another thing that I wanted to share that I realized I didn't talk about in our conversation was that anytime you join a meditation and someone shares maybe be connecting with Mother Earth or the universe, what I usually do in those moments is I honestly replace them with God or with Jesus Christ. And it's amazing whenever I do that mindfully in my own heart, whenever I listen to a meditation, that His power is truly there for me and does help me. And so, again, I just really hope that today's episode really helped you. And Kelly is a really great guide on simple meditations that have blessed my life and I know can bless you. Please check out her podcast, Meditation Mama and Mindful in Minutes. I am so thankful for the opportunity I had to have a conversation with her. And if this is something you really want to understand and practice, you can reach out to her or reach out to me, where we can have a free 30-minute session with the Grace Reset, and I can help you one-on-one with that. Again, thank you for tuning in today. I really hope today's episode brought a lot of clarity and hope and encouragement for you today. And remember, take one day at a time, take one moment at a time, and remember to build yourself with grace. I cannot wait to see you in next week's episode. Next week, I will be talking about worry and why worry is not worth it, and 6 different strategies to help you with worry that bring you closer to God. I cannot wait for next week's episode, and I'll see you next week. Did today's episode encourage you or give you something new to think about? If it did, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and share this with another mama who could use a little grace and encouragement today. I can't do this without you, and I'm so grateful for the chance to walk alongside you in the divine chaos that motherhood brings. I want you to remember this, Mama. God loves you. He sees you, and He is only a prayer away. God bless you, and I'll see you next time on Building Yourself with Grace.